Technology is one of the biggest evolutions throughout the last several decades. It has tremendously affected people with a disability, either mentally or physically, in a way that no one can feel but themselves. So for my research question, I decided to ask, how has technology influenced the lives of people that have a mental or physical disability? Let me tell you a little history about how the people with a disability were treated before the words disability and technology were even discovered. From the ancient century until the 1500s, people who were different were treated terribly. If they were mentally retarded, for example, people believed that the gods were angry and that this is their way of punishing the misfortunate people. Because of this eventually led others to torture the different people by either burning them or just killing them in the most painful death. During the 1500s up until the Renaissance, physically and mentally disabled people were used for amusement as court jesters. It was still a bad life for them, however, it was still a small improvement from what they had before, since they were burned to death or tortured to death from the ancient times up until before the 1500s. It wasn't until the 1830s when the life of a person with a disability had their lives greatly improved. Although they were segregated and were still treated somewhat poorly, people with a physical disability were allowed to go to school and learn what other kids were learning. I think the most important decade was the 1990s, because it was when America passed the Disabilities Act during this time, which offered equality and opportunity in education, employment, and other areas for the disabled.
Education is the doorway to literacy, and literacy is the doorway to improving quality of life. I think technology is the doorway to education.
Technology, for all of us, is going to be the big it of the future.
People with cognitive disabilities need a lot more different kinds of supports around technology to help you have more access to the community or the things that you want to do.
At this point now, I have the high honor of presenting the rights of people with cognitive disabilities and technology access.
The declaration is a document which expresses commitment to ensuring that people with cognitive disability have full and equal access to information and communication technologies.
And with that comes responsibilities for citizens in democracy to actively participate and to pursue those rights.
You know, these things that a lot of us are starting to take for granted that we do billions of times a day, a lot of people simply aren't allowed to do that because of technology barriers.
So more than that, for people with cognitive disabilities, it's a means for them to live lives that are much fuller than the lives that they live now.
Using the declaration as a way to begin talking about the types of technology supports and what technology can do to enable people to live, learn, work, and play in their own community.
Each cognitive disability has different aspects. Software should be able to interact at that level.
The more people, the more organizations that endorse this declaration, the greater its impact, the greater its visibility, and we can bring the dialogue to the national and the international stage and increase the quality of life of people with disabilities.
Taking action means incorporating it into your life and expressing those rights in whatever you do.
If we don't take action now to make sure that they are included, they will forever be excluded from society as the rest of people will continue to communicate and live and learn on a platform that is not accessible to other people with cognitive disabilities. It's that important. It's that important.
There are so many different types of disabilities, such as intellectual disability, autism, hearing loss and deafness, learning disabilities, chronic illness, physical disabilities, mental illness, speech and language disorders, and vision loss and blindness.
The first thing that people say is, what is AT? Well, there are many ways to answer that question. You could say it stands for assistive technology, that is, technology that assists you in some way. If you have a disability, you may need assistance with any number of things, from someone who needs an easier way to open a door, to someone who can only move their eyes and needs a more comprehensive solution. We like to sum up AT as returning independence through technology. Because everyone's needs are different, the assistance they require is also different. AT can help in many areas. The main ones are ACE, access, communication and entertainment. Some people find it difficult or impossible to get to and answer the door. Imagine being confined to the chair in your living room and the doorbell rings. What would you do? AT has solutions for that. Some people have limited dexterity, so using small buttons on telephones and computers can be a challenge, or they might not be able to speak. Now imagine you need to contact a family member. What would you do? AT has solutions for that. Imagine you are confined to your bed, but at least you have the television on. Then, that programme you really want to watch is on the other channel, or you now want to listen to some music. You can't reach, or are unable to operate the remotes. What would you do? AT has solutions for that too. AT can benefit many individuals. By reducing the reliance on care, it can return greater independence. It can increase security and improve social lives. It delivers peace of mind not only to those using it, but to their family and friends, colleagues and caregivers. It improves quality of life.
The next few videos will show how technology affects the life of a person that is disabled, either physically, mentally, or socially.
It could be called a modern-day miracle. Watch as this little boy hears his father's voice for the first time.
Hi, Grayson. Talk to him, Daddy.
Daddy loves you. Daddy loves you. Daddy.
Yes, here.
Can you hear Daddy?
Before this moment, Grayson Clamp had never heard a sound.
That's you. Grayson.
Grayson was born without the auditory nerves that carry sound from the inner ear to the brain. Initially, he was fitted with a cochlear implant, but without nerves, it was ineffective.
Bird.
That's when doctors at the University of North Carolina School of Medicine gave him this. It's an auditory brainstem implant. The device is typically used in adults whose nerves have been damaged and hadn't yet been approved for use in children. But that changed thanks to an FDA-approved trial. And Grayson became the first child in the country to undergo the procedure.
We don't really know exactly what it's like for him. We don't know exactly what he hears, if he hears everything we hear, some of what we hear.
Doctors are confident Grayson will eventually hear and speak like any other child. His parents say he's already made great progress, although they won't soon forget what that first moment was like.
It's on now. Hi, Grayson. Talk to him, Daddy.
Daddy loves you. Daddy loves you. Daddy.
Yes, here.
Oh, his face, it gets you every time. I mean, doctors may not like to use the word miracle, but it truly seems like a medical miracle. How does this work?
Yeah, it's quite remarkable. Dr. Craig Buckman's one of the doctors along with his team. And I want to show you because this type of technology has been around for a little while. They talk about cochlear implants. This is actually a implant that goes directly to the brainstem. That's what's so remarkable. There's no connections essentially between the outside world and his brainstem, so doctors had to essentially recreate that. Let me just show you. I don't know how much you'll be able to tell from this brain model, but essentially there was an implant on the outside. You sort of see essentially a microphone. It takes sound, it sort of distills it down, and then it implants it right there. That's called the cochlear nucleus. You don't need to remember that, but that's the place where the sound goes in the brain, and then sort of is taken all over where someone can actually take that sound and make sense of it in some way. So that's essentially what happens. It's been around for adults for some time,
Oh, it has.
but never before for a child.
I find it I think we all were just taken by that moment when he hears that sound. It's hard to imagine what he is experiencing
Right.
because he doesn't know words in the same way that you and I know words.
That's right, and we don't know exactly what he's able to hear. We know that he can listen to sounds specifically now, but it happens pretty quickly, Michaela, in terms of his ability to now
They're
take
sponges at that age,
new
too.
yes, and to actually you see his speech patterns change in response to being able to hear. So it gives me a little bit of goosebumps here, but it's quite extraordinary to think at this age how much it's going to make a difference in his life.
Hi, I'm Charlotte, and I'm Jared's mom. Jared is an amazing young man. He has a great sense of humor. He loves spending time on the computer and interacting with people around the world and also us as a family at home. Jared was born with cerebral palsy, and it affects him physically, but mentally and intellectually he's very smart. Jared uses a sip and puff to access his computer. The sip and puff sends a signal to Jared's environmental control unit on his wheelchair, which sends a signal to the touch switch, which sends a signal to the IntelliKey switch. The IntelliSwitch sends a wireless signal to Jared's computer that controls a software program called SwitchXS. SwitchXS allows Jared to do anything on his computer by choosing options from a pop-up menu that scans through several choices. When he gets to the option he wants, he then uses his sip and puff to make the selection. He can type, control the mouse, and do anything on his computer. When Jared was in elementary school, we started working with the staff at the school to find technology that would help make him successful and also provide a recreational outlet for him in the computer field. Jared's technology has changed over time. When Jared was in grade school, he used the leaf switch to access the computer. Then we changed when he was in high school to a jelly bean switch, which he would access by hitting with his head. And now he uses the sip and puff, which has been the best for accuracy for him. Because of his drive to do well, he's able to do what he is today.
Without language skills, Larry had a life of solitary confinement. Most assumed he had mental retardation and had nothing to say. Then he discovered facilitated communication, assisted typing with a computerized voice. Now he could show that he was the same as everybody else.
See this.
Larry's sister Sally believes it has transformed his life.
It was a rebirth for him when he started typing, because then he could get all his thoughts out and express himself. He was silent for over 30 years.
Many people with autism are nonverbal. They may communicate by pointing, pacing, walking over to what they want. Even if they are verbal, they don't pick up on social cues. Normally, they don't pick up on other people's body language, facial expressions, so they can't connect to people. It's almost like they're in a country where people speak a foreign language that they don't understand.
For Larry, art is language. Through painting, he communicates complex ideas about autism and society.
My perspectives on art.
My perspectives on art and the idea of eclecticism is what should be implanted in our mass cultural views of autism. We are all differently skilled.
We're all differently skilled.
Now, cut that out. The thing now.
When Larry's doing his art, he might be saying a lot of things, and then all of a sudden there's this quiet, there's this real calmness.
Larry's art is his self-expression. Larry has been doing art since he's been probably 5, 6 years old.
Larry found refuge in art when he was misunderstood, misdiagnosed, and locked up in an institution at 8 years old. It became a form of therapy for him.
They said he was severely mentally retarded. In another report, they would say he was schizophrenic. In another report, that he was clinically insane. Larry was physically abused when he was there. Larry has scars on him. He has gone through hell.
No more, get more.
When Larry was 20, Sally rescued him from a mental institution. She's cared for him since.
Do you want to take your spoon and stir it in there for me? Larry's extremely independent. He helps me prepare a lot of meals. Larry is a working member of our family like the rest of us, and he's included in everything. Good job. He sets our table, he helps me clean up, and he's very much a very important part of our family. Ooh, Larry, bring the goulash over to us. Yay! Ready to dig in. And Larry will never, ever, ever be without me.
Communication is one of the greatest factors when building a friendship with someone new, especially with someone who has a disability, since it takes patience and understanding and time when creating this new friendship. Since most people don't have the patience, they tend to not become friends with them, so it ends up being segregated in a school, which is kind of bad. So this is just a video I found on YouTube as to how to make conversation with someone different from you.
Thanks for that, Sarah. I have to admit, if the decision was ours, we'd say you've got the job. Start tomorrow. Isn't that right, Ben?
No question, absolutely.
But we do still need to clear it with Lloyd.
Lloyd?
General manager. Normally it would be a formality, but he is very demanding.
We have to make sure Lloyd doesn't have any issues with hiring someone like yourself.
You can imagine, if there were any problems down the line, well, he'd possibly need to be reassured there won't be.
It's not us, you understand, it's him. It's just that in your case, he might need some, as Faith said, some reassurance.
So what? Oh, Lloyd, this is the applicant I was telling you about.
Right, Sarah, you're the young lady behind this CV. Very impressive. And these two have been telling me good things too, but you will need to reassure me about one thing. You're not really into all that awful house music, are you? Welcome aboard, young lady.
Thank you. See the person, not the disability. Find out more, visit the website.
Coming back to my research question, how has technology affected or influenced the life of a person who has a physical or mental disability? Looking at it historically, you can totally tell that it has been influenced and affected greatly compared to the 18th century. You can see how much technology has become a huge involvement in a disabled person's life since it's improved their lives physically, mentally, emotionally, socially, and even education-wise. Although they are still discriminated until now, things can't get worse, only better from here on until the future.